Today, we uncover the shocking truth about the chemicals hiding on your fruit and veg. Right now, on the shelves of every major British supermarket, there are everyday fruits and vegetables being grown using chemicals that have been banned right across the rest of Europe. Banned over concerns they could damage human fertility. Banned over concerns they could be cancer-causing. Banned over what European regulators call hormone disruption. And yet here, on our side of the channel, those very same chemicals are still being sprayed onto the food you put on your family's plate, completely and perfectly legally. It gets worse. A recent investigation found that in 2026, a single traditional British roast dinner, followed by a bowl of strawberries for pudding, can carry a cocktail of more than 100 different pesticides. 7 of them banned in the European Union, but waved straight through here. There's a fruit your grandchildren probably love, sprayed with something Europe pulled off the market over fertility fears. There's a humble root vegetable in nearly every kitchen, doused in a chemical banned abroad as a hormone disruptor. And there's an orange, sold in one of the biggest supermarkets in the country, that isn't even suitable for vegans. Think about that. A fruit in UK supermarkets not suitable for vegans. And then there's that word, the one you've seen 100 times, on a net of oranges, on your lemons, on a bag of potatoes, and never once stopped to question. Treated. Sometimes it's treatment. Just sitting there on the label, telling you almost nothing at all. What does it actually mean? What's been done to that fruit before it ever reached your bowl, and why are they being so vague about it? Hold that thought, because the answer is a stranger one than you'd ever expect. And most shoppers are still clueless about all of this going on. Since Brexit, 14 chemicals that the EU has banned have stayed legal on British crops. 10 of them have been flagged by investigators as serious hazards to your health, to wildlife, or to the environment. And while you've been none the wiser, there's been a multi-million-pound lobbying effort working quietly behind the scenes to keep these things on your food for as long as possible. So we've gone right through what's being grown and sold in UK supermarkets, and we're going to count down the 9 chemicals you most need to know about and the everyday foods they cling to. Then I'll show you exactly how to dodge them and the smart shopping moves that actually keep this stuff off your plate. But before we do, I need a quick favour, and it genuinely matters. If you believe British families deserve to know what's really on their food, hit that hype button right now. I'm being serious. Every single hype pushes this video in front of more people, more mums, more dads, more grandparents doing their weekly shop. And that growing wave of ordinary people who simply refuse to look away is the exact pressure that forces these companies and our own regulators to raise their standards. You clicking that button isn't a small thing, it's you joining the pushback. So hype this video, because we're going to keep doing exactly this, going through the products on your shelves one by one and telling you the truth about what's actually inside them. And let's get into it. Number 9. Dimethomorph. This is the one named again and again in the reporting. It's a fungicide used on the nation's absolute favourite, strawberries, as well as raspberries and onions. Dimethomorph is banned across the European Union because it's been classified as toxic to reproduction. In plain English, regulators concluded it can damage human fertility. This is the one that comes up first in nearly every headline, and it's not hard to see why. Strawberries are summer. They're Wimbledon, they're the punnet you treat yourself to on a warm afternoon, they're the fruit you happily hand to a toddler because what on earth could possibly be wrong with a strawberry? And the answer, according to Europe, is a fungicide so concerning for fertility that they took it off their fields entirely, while ours simply carried on. The campaigners behind the investigation didn't mince their words. Greenpeace's Nina Schrank described our countryside as being drenched in pesticides with devastating consequences for bees, birds, butterflies, rivers, and the soil. That's the number 1 offender, sitting on the fruit we trust the very most in the season we love it the most. If anything sums up how far Britain has quietly drifted from the standards we once shared with our closest neighbours, it's this. Number 8. Benthiavalicard is the one that goes straight for the heart of the Great British Dinner, a fungicide used on potatoes. And the reason it was banned in the EU is about as serious as it gets. According to the investigation, it was banned in Europe after being proposed for classification as a cancer-causing substance. Read that again. Proposed for classification as carcinogenic and pulled from European fields as a result, yet still fully approved for British growers to buy and to use. Now picture the most British thing imaginable. A tray of roast potatoes, crisp and golden on the outside, fluffy in the middle, the centerpiece of every Sunday for generations. The roast potato is practically a national treasure. The jacket potato, the chip, the mash, the humble spud props up half our dinners. And the crop behind all of it can legally be treated with a fungicide that Europe stepped away from over cancer concerns. I want to be careful and fair here. This is about the concern that led to a ban abroad and about the gap between their rules and ours, not about any one farmer or any one shop. But that gap on a food this beloved and this everyday, on the one vegetable nearly every household in the country buys every single week, is exactly why this story matters so much. Number 7. Metribuzin. This is the one you genuinely cannot deal with at the kitchen sink, and that's what makes it so frustrating. A weed killer used on potatoes and on carrots. It's banned in the EU, where it's been flagged as an endocrine disruptor, another one of those chemicals that can interfere with the body's hormone system. And here's why it's so hard to escape. With a wax on the skin of an orange, you can at least scrub it. With something sprayed on the surface, a good wash helps. But a herbicide used on root crops is a different beast, because these are vegetables that grow down in the treated soil itself. You can give a potato or a carrot a scrub, and you absolutely should, but you're not going to rinse away something the plant may have drawn up through its roots as it grew, and the scale of it is the real eye-opener. The Greenpeace work, which was built on the government's own official pesticide usage data, found that carrots and parsnips were treated with around 40 different pesticides, and onions and leeks with 43. 43. On the humble onion that goes in very nearly everything we cook, from the Sunday gravy to the Monday soup. Number 6. Clofentazine. This one lands right in the lunchbox. And it's used on orchard fruit. We're talking apples and pears, and it's been linked in the recent reporting to strawberries as well. Clofentazine is banned in the EU, where the concern centres on hormone disruption and long-term effects. Now think about how we treat an apple in this country. It's the wholesome choice. It's what you pop in a child's lunchbox instead of a chocolate bar. It's the fruit we hand over thinking we've done the responsible thing. An apple a day and all that. So there's something genuinely uncomfortable about learning that the most innocent, everyday, healthy by reputation fruit we've got can be grown using a chemical Europe decided to ban over hormonal concerns. And notice it crops up twice, on the orchard fruit and on the strawberries, which tells you just how concentrated this problem is around the soft and stone fruit we think of as the healthiest things in the trolley. It doesn't mean you should bin the fruit bowl, and we'll get to exactly what you can do about it. But it does mean the gap between the image on the packaging and the reality in the field is far wider than any of us were ever led to believe. Number 5. Mepanipirum. And this is the one that proves a single spray is rarely the whole story. This is Mepanipirum, a fungicide used on strawberries, and it's banned in the EU after being identified as an endocrine disruptor, which is the term regulators use for chemicals that can interfere with the body's hormones. But here's the detail from the Greenpeace analysis that really stuck with me. They didn't just find that crops were sprayed with a wide range of chemicals, they found that many crops were dosed over and over again. Not once, not twice, repeatedly throughout the growing season. So when you picture a strawberry, don't picture one gentle mist at one single moment in time. Picture a fruit that may have been treated again and again, layer upon layer, with substances that other countries decided weren't worth the risk. It's the repetition that changes the whole picture. One careful application is one thing. A growing season of them, building up on a soft fruit you eat skin and all, with nothing to peel and nowhere for it to hide, is quite another. And it's exactly the sort of thing that never ever makes it onto the little label at the front of the punnet. Number 4. S-metolachlor. A weed killer commonly used on peas. According to the investigation, this one poses risks to mammals and has been linked to contamination of groundwater. And that's the bit that should worry you, because groundwater isn't some distant thing. It feeds the rivers, and it feeds the supply that eventually comes out of your tap. There's something almost comforting about a bag of frozen peas, isn't there? Wholesome. Simple. The sort of thing you'd happily spoon onto a child's plate without a second thought. But the crop those peas came from may well have been treated with a chemical Europe walked away from, partly over fears of what it does once it seeps into the ground and starts traveling. And that's what sets the weed killers apart from a surface spray. You can scrub a strawberry, you can peel a potato, but you can't peel a river, and once these things are in the water, they're an awful lot harder to get back out. It stops being about one meal and starts being about the whole landscape these crops are grown in. Number 3. Spirotetramat. For anyone who cares about the bees, and that should be all of us, this one is Spirotetramat, an insecticide that turns up on carrots. Its approval in the EU has been allowed to quietly expire, and the reason matters. According to Greenpeace, Spirotetramat is harmful to bees and to fish. Now you might think, what's a bee got to do with my carrots? Everything. Without pollinators, huge chunks of the food chain that fills our supermarkets simply fall apart. No bees doing their quiet work in the background means no proper harvests, which means empty shelves and soaring prices down the line. And notice the pattern here, because it's a sneaky one. This wasn't a dramatic ban with headlines. Its license in Europe was just left to lapse and never renewed because the concerns were serious enough that they didn't want it back. Over here, the license got rolled over and carried on. So when a chemical that's harmful to the very creatures our food depends on stays legal on a crop as ordinary as a carrot, it isn't just a problem for the wildlife. It's a slow problem for every single one of us, building quietly season after season while the people in charge argue about paperwork. Number 2. Etoxazole is where the sheer cheek of it starts to show. This one's called etoxazole, and it's used to deal with mites on crops like tomatoes and aubergines. Here's the part that should make you sit up. According to the same unearthed analysis, Europe looked at etoxazole and decided it could only be used on ornamental plants. That means decorative flowers and shrubs, things you put in a vase, things nobody is ever going to eat. The EU drew a clear line and said, this is fine for the petunias, but keep it well away from anything that ends up on a fork. And what do we do here in Britain? We allow it on tomatoes and aubergines. Food. The actual food you slice into a salad or roast in a tray. Just let that sink in for a moment. The very same chemical that European regulators decided was only safe enough for plants you'd never put in your mouth is on this side of the water considered perfectly acceptable on your dinner. It comes down to something called the precautionary principle, the idea that if there's serious doubt about a chemical, you err on the side of caution and pull it. Europe leaned into that. We leant the other way, and it's the kind of double standard that, once you've heard it, you simply can't unhear. Number 1. Ipoconazole. And we're starting with the one you'd never in a million years think to check. It's called ipoconazole, and it isn't sprayed on your fruit at all. It's used as a seed treatment on barley and wheat, the grains that become your daily bread, your morning toast, your flour, even your pint at the weekend. According to the investigation by Unearthed, which is Greenpeace's investigative journalism unit, ipoconazole is banned across the EU over its potential to harm fertility and to cause harm to unborn children. Over here, it remains fully authorized. Now, I'm not going to pretend a seed treatment on wheat is the same as something sprayed directly onto a strawberry, because it isn't, and I'll always be straight with you. But it earns its place on this list for one simple reason. It shows you just how deep this goes. You see, since the start of 2020, Great Britain has run its own pesticide approval system completely separate from the European one we used to share. And in the years since, the two have drifted apart, chemical by chemical, decision by decision. Europe keeps tightening. We keep extending. So when even the grain in your bread bin is grown with something Europe decided was too risky to keep, you start to realize this isn't about one rogue product. It's about a whole system that quietly diverged from the standards we once took for granted, and nobody thought it worth telling us. Now, before we get to the good news, and there is good news, I want to talk about that word you keep seeing and have probably never once questioned. Treated. You've all spotted it. On a net of oranges, on loose lemons, on a bag of potatoes. Treated. So what on earth does it actually mean? This is where I have to be really straight with you, because it's where a lot of videos get this badly wrong. The word treated on your fruit usually points to something completely different from the field chemicals we've just counted down. It points to what's done to the fruit after it's picked, and there's a reason for it. Producers brush on waxes and coatings, things like shellac, beeswax and carnauba wax to lock in moisture and give that glossy supermarket shine. They might also use a post-harvest fungicide, something like imazalil, to hold off the mold on that long journey. There are even newer, plant-based coatings now, made from plant lipids, designed to double a fruit's shelf life. And here's the honest bit that I need you to hear, because it's the part that protects you from being misled. Imazalil isn't banned in Europe, it's legal there, and it's legal here. So this part of the story isn't about a secret poison at all. It's about something arguably just as maddening. It's about how little they actually tell you. One vague little word, treated, doing an enormous amount of hiding, covering everything from a harmless wax to a fungicide, with no real explanation offered to the shopper standing there squinting at the label. And nowhere does that hiding get stranger than with the bombshell that caught thousands of British shoppers completely off guard. Your orange might not be vegan. I'm not joking. Tesco has openly confirmed that some of its oranges, and its lemons and limes too, are labelled as not suitable for vegans. The reason? That post-harvest wax coating, because the wax used to make citrus shiny and long-lasting, often contains shellac, which is a resin secreted by the tiny lac insect. And here's a detail that genuinely stops people in their tracks. It can take hundreds of thousands of those little insects to produce a single kilogram of shellac. When the news first went round, the reaction was pure disbelief. People couldn't get their heads round it, with one shopper summing it up perfectly online, asking simply, how can an orange not be vegan? And it's a fair question. To its credit, Tesco said it was working with growers to find a wax that skips the shellac altogether. But it tells you everything about how blind we're kept, that a perfectly natural-looking orange can be coated in insect resin, and the only way most people ever found out was a tiny line of small print. There's a practical sting in the tail too, especially if you're a keen baker who loves to zest the peel. Unwaxed citrus often costs you roughly twice what the waxed ones do. So the cleaner option, the one without the mystery coating, is quietly the more expensive one. Funny how that always seems to work out. But here's the part I really need you to hear. Please do not let any of this scare you off fruit and veg. I mean that with all my heart. The benefits of eating plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables are enormous, and they are not in question for 1 second. A diet full of strawberries, apples, carrots, and peas is one of the very best things you can do for yourself and the people you love, full stop. The point of this video was never to frighten you away from your 5 a day. It's to arm you with what they won't print on the label so you can shop a little smarter. And in fairness, I should give you the industry's side too, because you deserve the full picture. Bodies like the National Farmers Union point out that these products are strictly regulated by the Health and Safety Executive and used in small, controlled amounts. That's their position, and I'm not going to hide it from you. But you also deserve to choose for yourself, with your eyes open. So here is how to keep this stuff off your plate. First, and this is the big one, go organic. Where you can, organic standards ban these synthetic field sprays, and they ban the synthetic post-harvest coatings too. It's the single most reliable way to sidestep nearly everything we've talked about today in one move. You don't have to convert your whole shop overnight. And I know money's tight for everyone right now. So start with the worst offenders. The strawberries. The potatoes, the soft fruit your little ones eat by the handful straight out of the punnet. Spend the extra there where it counts the most. Second, when it comes to citrus, choose unwaxed and loose. Look for the word unwaxed on lemons and oranges, especially if you're someone who loves to grate the peel into a cake, a salad dressing, or a Sunday gravy. Zesting a waxed lemon means grating all of that coating, wax and shellac and all, straight into your food. So for the few pennies more, unwaxed is well worth it whenever you're using the skin. Third, wash, scrub and peel. Now, it won't remove what a root crop has taken up from the soil, and I won't pretend otherwise, because I'd never insult your intelligence. But a proper scrub under warm running water with a clean brush genuinely does help shift the surface residues and the waxes that sit on the skin. And where it makes sense, peeling does the rest. It's simple, it's free, and on the things you eat, skin and all, it makes a real difference. Fourth, get to know where your food actually comes from. A good local greengrocer, a proper farm shop, or a weekly veg box will very often tell you far more about how something was grown than a supermarket barcode ever will. So ask the questions and don't be shy about it. And honestly, nothing on this earth beats a couple of pots of your own strawberries on the patio or a few herbs on the kitchen windowsill. You know exactly what's gone on them, because the answer is nothing at all. And fifth, use your voice, because this is the one that fixes it for everybody, not just you. Right now, the UK is negotiating a deal with the EU that could force these 14 chemicals off British crops, potentially as soon as 2027. The only real thing standing in the way is pressure from a pesticide lobby that's warned it could cost the industry somewhere between £500 million and £810 million in the first year to fall back in line. Their proposed answer is something they call managed alignment, which in plain terms means keeping these banned in Europe chemicals in use here for as long as possible, while each one is slowly reassessed, one at a time. That could drag on for years. And the strange part is that both sides actually want a deal done, because British food exports to the EU have fallen by roughly a third since Brexit, so smoother trade matters enormously to our farmers as well. The standards and the trade are all tangled up together. That's the fight. Right now, today. And the more of us who know about it and refuse to stay quiet, the harder it becomes for anyone to keep these things on your dinner plate. Your awareness is not nothing. It is the whole game. So there you have it. 9 chemicals banned by our nearest neighbours, still perfectly legal on our food, and a simple set of moves to take back a bit of control at the checkout if this opened your eyes even a little. Do me that one favor and smash the hype button before you go, because every single hype drags this video in front of more people who deserve to know exactly what I've just told you. And that, more than anything, is how ordinary folk like us actually force the big companies to do better. Then drop me a comment and tell me which food or product you want me to dig into next, because I read every single one and I genuinely want to know what's worrying you in your weekly shop. And if you're not subscribed yet, go and sort that out, because I've got a lot more of these coming. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and protect your plate.